Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about how Donald Trump has officially taken the lead in Virginia and Minnesota. We see here in the Decision Desk HQ aggregate of polls that they consider legitimate. We see that today, Donald Trump leads Joe Biden in the state of Virginia by 0.2%. He has 43.9% to Joe Biden's 43.7%. And then in Minnesota, we see that today, just a little bit ago, Donald Trump took the lead in Minnesota as well after some polls. He now leads Joe Biden by 1.9% with 47.1% to Joe Biden's 45.5%. So this is big. Minnesota and Virginia are considered pretty Democratic states. When you look back at 2020, Minnesota voted for Joe Biden by a margin of 7.1%, and Virginia was a margin of 10.1%. These are very Democratic states. Both even went for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. The last time either of them went Republican was 2004. That was Virginia, when Virginia voted for Bush. And Minnesota, before that, hasn't voted Republican since, I believe, it even voted for Walter Mondale, the Democrat, in 1984 during that Reagan landslide. But the last time it voted Republican was 1972, Minnesota. So if Minnesota were to vote Republican in 2024, it would really be a huge shock. Both of these states, just because of how long it has been since these states did vote for the Republicans. And, this difference from 2020 to 2024, Donald Trump just doing so much better, especially in polls than he was in 2020, is even reflected in the nationwide polls. We see in the five-way matchup, Trump, Biden, Kennedy, West, and Jill Stein. We see that today, Donald Trump leads by an average of 2.9% in the polls. Now, 4 years ago, on June 15th, 2020, this same exact time in the 2020 election, Joe Biden led by 8.4%. So we see here, Donald Trump is doing about about 12.5% better, or 13.5% better this time around in 2024 than he did back in 2020. So this is huge. Donald Trump, for the first time ever, right, in 2016, 2020, 2024 now, this is the first time ever Donald Trump has led in these states, in Minnesota and Virginia. These are Democratic states. This is not good for the Biden campaign. You can see that just in June, or just, in the beginning of this month, we're still in June, on June 1st, when we had all the polls, Biden led on average by 12% in Minnesota. But since then, Virginia, he led by 12%. But since then, just in 15 days, it has narrowed up so much so that Donald Trump has actually taken the lead. So, there's always surprises like this in polling, right? Back in 2020, we saw Florida was favored to go to Biden by, a 69% chance of going to Biden in 2020. It ended up going to Trump by 3.4. In 2020, North Carolina was heavily favored to go to Biden. 64% chance that it would go to Biden. And then, I guess in Ohio was a toss-up. Trump was favored there. But what we saw was Biden was favored in the polls in a few states, like North Carolina, like Florida, maybe Iowa, I'm not sure, etc., that he did end up losing. He did end up losing these states in 2020. So there can be, inaccurate polls when it comes to statewide polling. But the bigger picture here is not even the fact that Virginia and Minnesota could go to Trump. If it does, that's great for him. That, that opens his path immensely to 270. That makes it extremely easy to get to 270. After that, all you need would be North Carolina and then Georgia, and you're already over 270. That would be a very easy path to victory there. But the bigger picture here is not even that. It helps, but whatever. The bigger picture is just the state of the race right now. When you have a Republican leading in Minnesota and Virginia, when Donald Trump is leading in these two states now, it seems over, almost. I'm not saying it's over. The election is probably still going to be very close. But it's not a good sign for the Biden campaign at all when they have to defend these states that voted for him in 2020, 4 years ago, by 7.1 and 10.1% respectively. You just have such a narrow path to victory, because that means that, Minnesota and Virginia are now battleground states. It makes so many more states battleground and makes the traditional battleground states, seem leaning Republican, a bit more Republican than battleground, right? Like in 2020. So that expands the electoral map when it comes to battleground states. They now have to defend Minnesota and Virginia. They have to defend New Mexico and New Hampshire and Maine and Nebraska's second districts and states that should not be considered a battleground, but they are because of Joe Biden's performance so far in this race. And then with these battleground, it just makes it so much harder for now Biden to put time and resources and everything and money into these traditional battleground states that were a struggle in 2020. And, with all of these diversions in the more Democratic states that are now battleground, like Minnesota and Virginia and New Mexico, it just really closes the door for Biden in these traditional swing states where he must win in order to win the presidency. He must win the Rust Belt in order to win. And it opens the door for Donald Trump, because now, he can expand in these blue states, but really, he has an opportunity to lock down these, the traditional swing states, the ones that he won in 2016. And that easily puts him over 270. Just with the swing states, the traditional swing states, I should say, that puts him over 312. But I mean, when you've got these pretty Democratic states that are now battleground, he has the real opportunity to expand big. He could, get the opportunity to win 340 electoral votes, maybe more if he wins Maine, if he wins New Hampshire. And he actually has an opportunity to. When you look at these new numbers, the chances that Biden is able to hang on everywhere is just so slim. 2020 was narrow, and he was so favored. And I was bringing up these polls before, or these chances, I should say. They run simulations to see who has the best chance in these states. But this was in 2020 now. And even though, now all states played out as the chances, as the simulations ran out. They didn't align with the simulations in every state exactly, but it did give a good idea of who the winner is. That is the bigger picture of this, of Trump leading in Minnesota and Virginia. He may not get Minnesota and Virginia. It's looking like they're going to be very close and critical battleground states. However, the bigger picture here is that it gives us an idea of where this race stands, because in 2020, Joe Biden, it seemed like, had the 2016 narrow Trump states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania on lockdown. And then it was looking like he was going to flip the pretty Republican states of Georgia and North Carolina and Arizona. And he would come close in Ohio and Iowa, and he would flip Florida and whatever. And even though that didn't happen, it really gave us an idea of where the election stood. Joe Biden was on the offense. Donald Trump was on the major defense end, the defensive end. He was trying to defend his 2016 states. And he did, in a few. But overall, there were just too many to defend, and Donald Trump could not possibly, the campaign could not surmount to that. He could not defend Florida, Georgia, the blue wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona all at the same time. It was just too much to handle. And now Biden's situation in 2024 looks even worse than that. It looks even worse because, of course, he's got to defend now 6 of the regular battleground states, that being Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And now it's looking like, according to polling, that Minnesota is being thrown in that group. Virginia is being thrown in that group. Maine is being thrown in that group. And New Mexico even is being thrown in that group. So he has got so many more states to defend in 2024 when he didn't have to defend really anything in 2020 because, into Election Day, it looked like the 2016 Clinton states would just come for him. would come for granted. He would win all of them, no problem. He didn't have to defend anything. He was on the offensive game. And in 2024, now the roles have flipped. Now Joe Biden has to defend all of these states that he won in 2020, and not only that, he has to defend more than Donald Trump did in 2020. He has to defend more in 2024 than Trump did in 2020, and what do you know? Trump lost in 2020. It's simply put, it's just a challenge that will be so hard to overcome for the Biden campaign. Looking at his approval numbers, looking at this polling, looking, at the nationwide polling as well as the statewide polling, his path to victory is just so narrow. It just really is. So, this is important. Minnesota and Virginia, that is important. Trump leads now in both of these states. So, thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It helps out the channel big time. Again, whatever, drop a like, drop a comment, whatever. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.